Shalom Aleichem. Mishnah Yomi is holding in Chagigah. We're in chapter 2 of Chagigah, Mishnah 6, Mishnah Vav. Now, yesterday we got onto the topic of Tuma and Tahara, meaning ritual purity and impurity. Now, the laws of Tuma and Tahara are quite complex. When we get into Seder Taharot, towards the end of Mishnah, the end of Shas and Kalim and Yadayim and the like, we will discuss these laws in more detail, but they do come up throughout Shas and are particularly important during the regel, during the festivals, when people would come up to Yerushalayim and they'd want to eat that shalmei chagigah, that shlamim, that sacrificial meat, so they had to become tahor to do so. If they wanted to cook it in their pots and pans, they had to get those tahor or get new ones to do so. So the laws are quite complex. Yesterday we did see there are 5 levels. There's chulin. Chulin is regular food that people eat normally. Meiser, referring to Meiser Sheni, which is the separated from the crop, eaten only in Yerushalayim. Truma is the portion given to Kohanim. Kodesh is parts of sacrificial meat, or menachot for Kohanim. And also Mei Chatat, the Para Aduma water, which was given stringencies even above and beyond Kodshim. So Mishnah Vav picks up with another ramification of this concept, that there are different levels of Tuma and Tahara. Basically, if something's at a higher level, it's easier for it to become contaminated, and people handling that item need to be more careful. So Mishnah Vav, a tovil lechulin, somebody goes into the mikveh for the purpose of eating chulin, chuchsak lechulin, and so now he had in mind to be tahor enough for chulin, asr lemeiser. He can't rely on that immersion to eat meiser sheni. He'd have to go again. Now, really, one does not have to go in the mikveh before they eat lunch if they're only eating chulin. As we mentioned yesterday, if someone's eating bread of chulin, our sages required al natilas yadayim, the washing of the hands, as we do today. So why is someone going in the mikveh just to eat regular chulin? Well, there were many people who were scrupulous to engage in being tahor and being ritually pure, even for eating their chulin, such as Kohanim, who regularly were given truma. Kohanim on their shift in Yerushalayim would be eating kodshim, so they would want to be in the habit of keeping themselves and their vessels and everything pure, because they were regularly handling truma and kodshim and the like. But we see from this Mishnah that somebody goes in the mikveh with intention for chulin, they can only eat chulin. The Mishnah continues, Tavel lemaiser, he goes in the mikveh for meiser sheni, huchsak lemaiser, he had in mind to be tahor, to be pure on that level, asr letruma, so he can't go to the next level higher, truma, which is more stringent than maaser. Tavel letruma, again, if somebody goes in the mikveh for the sake of eating truma, this is a kohen, huchsak letruma, so now this kohen is ready to eat his truma, asr lekodesh, so they show up with a piece of a shlamim, and they say, here, you could eat this. So actually he can't eat it until he goes back in the mikveh with the having in mind to be prepared for kodshim. And the Mishnah adds the last case, Tavel lekodesh, he goes to the mikveh for kodesh, for sacrificial items, huchsak lekodesh, and he had in mind to be tahor for that, asr lechatat. He can't then go and handle mei chatat, the famous para aduma liquid, which renders people who had contact with the dead body ritually pure. The Mishnah concludes, Tavel lechamor, if he goes in with the intention of being pure for the most stringent, mutter lekal, he could certainly handle or eat something less stringent, less susceptible to contamination. But lo hukzak, kilu lo tavel. Tavel lo hukzak, somebody went in the mikveh without anything in mind, he's just going in the mikveh, I might have touched something, I'll just go in the mikveh. He didn't have in mind that he wants to handle truma. Like he has to go back and do it over again. He had no intention to become pure. We see from here an important concept in life. If you want to be involved in anything complicated, anything higher level than just regular, ordinary, day-to-day life, you need to have intention. You need to have a plan. And you need to try to purify yourself, to focus your intentions and figure out what specifically you need to do and in what order to attain your goals. Great, let's go on to Mishnah Zayin. Big Day Am Haaretz, the clothing of an Am Haaretz. This is a less educated person, somebody who's not as careful with contamination. Midras leprushim, they are considered midras. This is a certain type of tuma generated by a zav or a zava, or a woman who had given birth, sitting on that item. It then becomes tame medras. It's medras for prushim. Now, prushim means the separated ones. It really refers to the people who are very careful about keeping a strict level of tahara. such as the people we mentioned in the last Mishnah who might want to handle even their chulin, even the regular food, they would handle it and treat it with stringencies of Tuma and Zahara because they would regularly be handling Truma or Kodshim. They wanted to be in that habit and not make mistakes. So basically, the Mishnah is saying someone who's a parush, who's very careful, shouldn't borrow the jacket from a regular Amma Aretz off the street who's not careful, unless he's going to take it to the mikveh first. Mishnah continues, Big Day Prushim Midras Oche Truma. Even if someone's a parush, his clothing, his utensils would still render contaminated someone who eats Truma. That's a higher level. Big Day Ochle Truma, the garments and vessels of someone who eats Truma regularly, a Kohen who's regularly eating Truma and is careful with his Torah, Midras Lakodesh, that can contaminate sacrificial items, sacrificial foods. And finally, Big Day Kodesh, the vessels, clothing of someone who is tahor enough to handle Kodesh, Midras Lahatat. It would be something that renders Tameh Mechatat, the Para Aduma water. Now, the Mishnah gives some examples of people who were well known at the time. Yosef ben Yoezer haya chosid shebagahuna. Yosef ben Yoezer, he was the chosid. He was very pious, very careful, very scrupulous among the Kohanim. So obviously he was eating truma on a regular basis, being a Kohen. He was very careful with the contamination of it. V'haita mitpachto midras lakodesh. And yet his handkerchief, this mitpachat, is like a hand towel or a handkerchief people would carry around. And it's something that technically, you could sit on it, or rest your head on it, and it would become midras, technically, if someone's tameh. So it was midras lekodesh. It was considered midras, someone eating kodesh, even though this individual is a gadol ador, he's a great sage, he's very careful, but he's very careful on a certain level, for truma, so it's not careful enough for kodesh. Another example is Yochanan ben Gudgada haya ochel atar te kodesh kol yamav. He would eat everything on the level of Kodesh. Even his chulin, even his Meiser Sheni, he held to the highest standard. He was a Kohen, and he, perhaps he lived near Yerushalayim, ate a lot of Kodesh, went to the temples. He wanted to do everything on that highest level. But even so, Haita mitpachto midras lachatat. His handkerchief was considered tamei midras for mechatat. For people who handle mechatat, couldn't use his kelim without purifying them first. Yasher Kochachem. Tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem, we start chapter 3, the final chapter of Chagigah. Tizku mitzvot, Basora Tovot.